and I'll be monitoring the chat. So take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ellie. And thank you to everyone that's here today to hear about specially designed instruction for admin. My name is Ramona Karsner. I'm the Director of Special Education here at CKEC, and I'll let Carrie, my awesome right hand, introduce herself.
I am Carrie Sherrets, and I am the Proficiency Gap Specialist here at CKEC. And I have pulled up the breakout session main page so our resources can be found. I've included a copy of the slides because there will be some links that you can click on to head to different places. And then we also have the OCL SDI document and a CKEC planning tool that we'll talk about. So I'm going to turn it over to Ramona to start us off.
So just wanted to kind of let you guys know here at CKEC in the Special Education Division, one of our primary focuses for training of teachers and administrators, and primarily the biggest majority of our work here at CKEC in Special Ed Division has been on specially designed instruction. As we've gone out into classrooms, we've seen that just really be one of the factors that we really want to train special education teachers on and see implemented in the classroom. So as you can see on this next slide, this is our team here at CKEC. And that's comprised of me as the Director of Special Ed, and Carrie also is our Proficiency Gap Specialist. And there are lots of different folks on our team. Carrie, I'm not seeing those slides pop up.
Can you see them? Hold on. It's saying pause share. Like when she, hold on a second.
Sorry.
Do you see
There
it now?
we go. Now, perfect.
I don't know why it's paused.
And so you can kind of see our different team members, and big part of their work has been specially designed instruction. So wanted you to be able to see those faces and reach out for support if you're in CKEC, or even if you're in another co-op, you're more than welcome to reach out, and they'll help you get information you need and also connect you to your cooperative region folks that represent that area. But getting nitty gritty, because I know we've got a short amount of time, we're going to kind of talk about the legal requirements of specially designed instruction. And being a local director of special ed, I had seen this kind of three-prong approach towards eligibility for special education many times, and implemented it and defended it and litigated around it. But one of the things that, as we've approached this work in SDI, we've really talked about the importance of we need to see specially designed instruction for our students with disabilities, whether they're in gen ed or classrooms or in resource rooms. And so when you look at the legal requirements to even be eligible for special education, you have to have a verified disability. You have to have an adverse effect that requires specially designed instruction. And we kind of talk about, if you just have a verified disability and an adverse effect, you're kind of just focusing on 504 sometimes, and you might need accommodations. But when you're really looking at eligibility for special education, that requires specially designed instruction just for eligibility into the program, which means we have to look at teaching our students with disabilities different than what's happening in the gen ed classroom. And so when we look at IDEA and SDI in the law, we kind of see the regulations around this. And I know you as principals see a lot of legalese, but when you look at specially designed instruction and we talk about it, we know it's adapting the content, the methodology, or even that delivery of instruction to address unique needs. But look at this third bullet. And this really has stood out to us at CKEC and really been a lot of the impetus for the work that we're doing within SDI and co-teaching, because the law even says specially designed instruction is given to ensure access of the child to the general curriculum. We've seen that a gazillion times. But look at this next piece. It says, so that the child can meet educational standards, right? So we have to focus on our students meeting educational standards. And that's what we're trying to do within specially designed instruction. We've done a lot of work with Marilyn Friend. She's come, or Marilyn Friend, of course, for for co-teaching approaches, but we've really partnered lately with Ann Benninghoff. And if you've not had an opportunity to read Ann's book around specially designed instruction, we have some copies here at CKEC, but we can send you the links for that. But Ann really summarizes SDI so well. And the work we've done with Ann has changed the format of so many of our trainings that we're providing at CKEC, whether it be IEP training, ARC chair training, or even our SDI academies and co-teaching. She really summarized it so well that we have to adapt content. We have to adapt methodology and delivery of our instruction so that students can meet educational standards. So we constantly need to be looking at our grade level standards. Where are our students with disabilities falling? And what are the sub skills of these standards that we can focus on in our IEPs that will ensure our students are meeting those educational standards? And so that's really where we focused a lot of our work with SDI, and ensuring that our special education teachers are armed with resources to provide that SDI. You know, back when I was in undergrad several years ago, about 30, we kind of knew specially designed instruction, but as our world has changed as administrators, we're getting a lot of option 6, option 7, sometimes even option 9 special education teachers. And a lot of times their training is not giving them a lot of information in terms of specially designed instructional strategies. And so we really want to make sure they have those resources and that they understand that special ed teachers are more than homework helpers. Like, students with disabilities are entitled to more than homework help. SDI is what we are focusing on as the special ed teacher. And so that means we have to be teaching our students with disabilities differently. They have to have something different than what they're getting in gen ed settings. So that means instructional strategies that are different. So Carrie, I'm going to let you take off on the next one.
Awesome. Thank you. So where do we find SDI in our IEPs? So if you currently use Infinite Campus, SDI is listed under the goals. In Infinite Campus, it's a very small box, and we always talk here at CKEC that even though that box is so tiny, that is really important, and that is what we do. That is our focus, that specially designed instruction in order to help our students meet those educational standards. So first, we're going to talk a little bit about what SDI is and what it isn't. So SDI is in addition to that core instruction. So it's not in place of. So it's very important that we are looking at what our students are receiving when they have an IEP. So are they getting what the gen ed students are getting, what the rest of their same age peers are getting, in addition to, as Ramona said, that specially designed instruction? SDI is not a service or support. So it's not the resource room. It's not a place that they go. It's something more than that. It's what the special educator does for the student. It's the actions, the strategies, the tools, the resources that the special educator does for the student with an IEP. And the goal of specially designed instruction is to promote independence. We want those students to be able to work independently as a learner, with the ultimate goal to obviously be graduating and moving on to careers and working. SDI is teaching specific skills to a student with IEPs, and we're looking at those skills that have been identified as learning barriers. So we're looking at those present levels to determine what skills will this student need to help them be successful with the gen ed curriculum so that they can meet those educational standards. SDI is very, very, very critical. As Ramona said, it's that third leg of the stool. It's that third prong. It's the most important part of what special educators do. It's important to note that it is also specific to the individual student. So we do not look at, 5 IEPs at once and pick a strategy that we can teach all 5. We're looking at the individual needs of the student, and we are choosing our specially designed instruction based on what that student needs. And of course, as always, we talk at CKEC so much about this last part is we are getting rid of those low expectations. We're throwing them away as we do in our trainings. We have teachers write low expectations on a sticky note and we have them crumple it up and throw it in the garbage. We are maintaining high expectations for all of our students with disabilities. For all of the students with IEPs, we are thinking about they can meet those standards and how can we get them there. So let's talk about what SDI is not. So there are some misconceptions when we talk about specially designed instruction. So of course, we are not giving specially designed instruction in place of core instruction. So we want to make sure that our students with IEPs are getting our core instruction, the standards, and then on top of that, they are getting those specially designed instruction strategies. So it's not in place of or instead of, it is in addition to. It is not the least restrictive placement. It's not what a student does, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. It's not a restatement of the standards that are being taught. So sometimes what we will see is a student will receive the core lesson in the classroom, and then the special ed teacher will come and pull them from the gen ed setting into the resource room, and they will get the same lesson, the same practice that the students are getting in the general ed setting. But as we say, it's just being, taught louder and slower. So it's not a restatement of what has been taught. It's different, a different strategy, a different method that we are using to teach them the standard. It's not naming a specific program. So we're not saying, this student receives Orton Gillingham for their specially designed instruction. We're not naming specific programs. And when we think about specially designed instruction, it's important that our specially designed instruction, is not driven by the programs that we use in our school or the curriculum resources that we have or our schedule. And of course, we're not lowering those expectations of our students with IEPs, and we're not removing them from the gen ed setting. And the goal is not to promote dependence. So sometimes we will see students that will be sitting in a classroom and all the other students are working quietly on, a task, and we'll see our students with IEPs that are literally sitting and waiting for the special ed teacher to come and help them or to take them to the resource room to help them complete the task. So SDI is not about a student being dependent on an adult. And Marilyn Friend, who is a pioneer in co-teaching, which is, the person that we follow for our co-teaching strategies and things, which Ramona will talk about briefly in a little bit. She says SDI is what makes special education special. We have some guiding questions around work when we train special educators and gen ed teachers for co-taught settings. This is the cover of the book here that Ramona referenced. So this is Anne's specially designed instruction. But in this book, she offers these guiding questions. So we encourage teachers and administrators when they have those conversations around students with IEPs that we are asking things like this. Is this student getting something special? Are they getting something different from the typical gen ed practices of the universal design or differentiated instruction. I watched a webinar with Marilyn Friend, and she said, they should be getting something different than just good teaching. This specially designed instruction, is it addressing the child's unique needs? Specially designed instruction needs to also be related to their IEP goals. So we're thinking about collecting that data for progress monitoring. And is that specially designed instruction actually instruction rather than a tool or accommodation? And I'll explain a little bit more about that shortly. We want to make sure our instruction, that specially designed instruction, is intentional and it is bringing about progress of that student with IEPs. We want to grow those skills so that they can transfer and generalize across settings. We know generalizing in itself is a skill that students with disabilities often struggle with. So we need to think about those skills that they can transfer. And again, the ultimate goal is we are building their independence as a learner and helping them meet those educational standards that apply to all of the peers in their grade.
And Carrie, I'm going to interject real quick.
Yes, absolutely.
Principals, I wished I would have had this information. I know Carrie was a building administrator like me, is in with special ed too. These are the questions I want you going through your mind as you walk into the classrooms. If you're going into a gen ed co-teaching setting, I want you to look at, is the special ed teacher doing something differently? Ask them, what IEP goal are you working on today? These are the questions we want you looking at as you go into co-teaching settings, or even if you're going into a resource room. What type of strategies are you seeing different that are happening in those resource rooms than what's happening in gen ed? Hopefully they are different strategies and they're not just a teacher going over a worksheet that was like from 2 years ago. When they're in 4th grade, they're doing a 2nd grade worksheet. That's not really special ed. That's not a strategy. That's not what we want to see happening in those resource rooms. So these are some questions that you can utilize as you're going into those classrooms to see how the special education teacher is doing. And most of the time, what we have found in our observations when we're asking these things, it's just that no one ever really trained them or had them think about these things. It's not that they're not doing anything. They're doing what they know to do, but they just need more strategies and resources.
So we always put up this graphic whenever we talk about specially designed instruction and accommodations, because oftentimes people will have an aha and say, oh my goodness, we are giving students a lot of accommodations, but we are not providing direct, explicit instruction for those students. So if you look at the examples on the left, those are examples of specially designed instruction. So if we talk about graphic organizers can be a great tool for struggling learners, but what we need to make sure is that we are teaching them how to use that graphic organizer. And ultimately, we want them to be able to use that resource, that tool, in other settings, in science, in social studies, in writing, in reading, maybe in music class if they're doing something with a research project. So whatever we teach them for that specially designed instruction, that is what the special ed teacher is doing. On the right-hand side, those accommodations are things that we can just put in place, and anybody can put those in place for a student. So if you look, graphic organizer is on that list, but it becomes specially designed instruction when we teach them explicitly how to use the graphic organizer and when they, it would be beneficial to use it. We have put in your resources the OSIL document for specially designed instruction. And when we train, due to the sake of time, I won't spend a lot of time on this because we want to talk about some co-teaching things. But when we train, we focus on pages 12 to 14. And what 12 to 14 focuses on is things to keep in mind when you are talking about specially designed instruction. And the two major things that we key in on is, in Kentucky, specially designed instruction must initially be delivered by the special ed teacher. Now, we love paraprofessionals, and when I was a principal in my building, I had 35 of them. Yes, I said 35. But they cannot deliver specially designed instruction. Now, a gen ed teacher can replicate specially designed instruction for a student with an IEP after the special education teacher has delivered that. So we always make sure to key in on that. And the other thing we talk about with specially designed instruction that I think is a misconception, and Ramona, feel free to jump in on this one, is how you list the specially designed instruction, the minutes that a teacher is serving a student. So if I am in a co-taught classroom, for example, and I say, I'm in there, they're getting co-taught for 60 minutes a day. What the state is saying is that we need to think about how much time is specially designed instruction being delivered. And that's how we write that in the IEP. Ramona, do you have additional stuff to add with that?
Just the resource room minutes are what they are. But when we're looking at co-teaching, a lot of times when I was a director of special education, I would have my staff put 45 minutes because I wanted them to be in there all 45 minutes. And I knew if I didn't, then they weren't going to be in there, because that's sometimes how they rolled. But really, KDE has clarified for us, and I'm so appreciative. This document's amazing. It's one of the best well-written pieces around specially designed instruction for our state. And so what they have clarified for us is that SDI, those minutes in co-teaching are around the time, like Carrie said, the time you're delivering specially designed instruction. And so I know our directors of special education have worked hard with our staff to understand that those co-teaching minutes are around the time that specially designed instruction is given. So
we have right here, so there are a couple of our consultants actually in later sessions this afternoon. I think there is one this morning and then this afternoon, but we have SDI toolkits that all the co-ops in Kentucky came together and created these resources around specially designed instruction. And so if you scan that QR code or click on the link in the slides, it takes you to the folder where all of those resources are located. And they are structured in a way that on the left-hand side, it will talk about an area of concern that the student might have, and then they will give you evidence-based and or research-based strategies that you can use for students with disabilities. So I encourage you, if you've never heard of these before, or if you're teachers, you're in a building and you ask a teacher, hey, have you looked at these SDI toolkits? I encourage you to check them out. It's an amazing resource. It's something that I feel every special education teacher in Kentucky can benefit from using this. But we've also found when we have gen ed teachers in our trainings that, we have a lot of students in our schools without IEPs that are struggling more than our students with IEPs. I'm sure a lot of you right now are shaking your head like, yes, we have a lot of that. So our gen ed teachers have actually cheered when they've looked at these toolkits, because you kind of get to a point with struggling learners where you don't know what else to try or do with them. So this is a place that you can go in those 4 key areas to help support students.
And one of the pieces I like the most about this is that for our new folks or our alt certified teachers, it will give them the strategy and they can literally click on a link and it will model it for them. I think that is just priceless. And it's a lot of the information we get from our alt certified teachers that we're training, is that we need these resources to be able to go through at night and have those. And this is literally right at their fingertips. So please share this with your special ed teachers. Hopefully they've already seen it. And like Carrie said, share it with your gen ed too, because they have been ecstatic to have this. They've used it with EL kids. They've used it for RTI, tier 2, tier 3 interventions, which is what we want. We just want to give people resources to support kids.
Absolutely. So Anne Benninghoff, her, famous quote for specially designed instruction is talking about how we can't teach a child to swim by taking them out of a pool. So by taking them to the resource room, nor by just throwing them in. So just shoving them in that gen ed setting and not offering those strategies that they can use in order to be successful. So we want to make sure that we are looking at all of our IEPs, all of those students as individuals, and thinking about where is the best place for them to be learning that specially designed instruction. So is it going to be in the gen ed setting with the special ed teacher in their co-teaching with the gen ed teacher?
And so one of the questions we get is, what's the best way to implement SDI in the gen ed classroom? And of course, we are going to tell you co-teaching. We are lock, stock, and barrel bought into co-teaching for our students with disabilities because we want them to have access and meet educational standards. Every moment that we take a child out of a gen ed classroom into a resource room, they're missing standards. So we're just continuing to widen that gap even more. So for our students, we want to see them in those co-teaching classrooms as much as possible. And when we look at co-teaching, we need to understand that that is really a service delivery option within the continuum of services for students with disabilities. We're focusing on ensuring that they're giving access to that gen ed curriculum. We know, Carrie talked about how much we love our paras, but really to be co-teaching and provide specially designed instruction, there needs to be 2 or more licensed professionals. So when we just have a para in there, our kids are just going to get accommodations. They're not going to get truly specially designed instruction. We know that it's occurring in a single shared classroom, and all students are members of their co-taught class. We want our students to hear the discourse of students that are non-disabled so that they're hearing higher level ways of thinking and they're hearing higher vocabulary and they're getting to engage in discourse about content, which we know as educators is so important for our students. And so that's primarily what co-teaching is. One of the things that we see as we go out into classrooms is that we put 2 people together and we say, okay, you guys are going to co-teach, and we really never clarify the roles for those folks, and we sure don't give them a whole lot of strategies. And so we really think it's so important for our special ed and gen ed teachers to understand their roles. And as special ed teachers, your job's not to go in there and table tap and be a bouncer for the classroom. Your job is planning, designing, and initially implementing that specially designed instruction while you're in the classroom that goes along with those content standards. And so once that's done by the special ed teacher, then the gen ed teacher can replicate, extend it. They can do it when the sped teacher's not in there and they have the kid in class later through the day for social studies, but not for English. And so they can still do those things. And it's really good to see the understanding of those roles, that the gen ed teacher knows that they're focusing on the curriculum, the content, and pacing, while the special ed teacher is focusing on SDI and understanding the learning differences of the students based on their disability. We're looking at individualization. What is meeting the needs of each individual student inside that gen ed classroom, while the gen ed teacher is focusing on the large group. As a large group, here's where we need to be in terms of content standards. And the special ed teacher's focusing on those individual differences and those strategies that are needed. They're implementing the IP and progress monitoring. And I tell folks a lot, and we train this differently, progress monitoring is not an event, guys. I can't tell you how many special ed teachers go, oh, I got a progress monitor today. Nope, that's not what it is. Progress monitoring is done after you deliver the specially designed instruction strategy, and you take data. Did that strategy help the kid improve their learning? Did it not? That's what you're taking data on. Progress monitoring is not just random map testing where we're just seeing what the kid knows every day. We're implementing these strategies and we're taking data based on whether those strategies went up or down. And
Ramona.
so, yeah.
Hi, this is Ellie. I am so sorry to interrupt you, but we are at our time limit. So if we have any questions, we have a little bit of overflow time that we could use.
So, yeah. Any questions? You'll see as you go on through the slides. We're sorry that we took a little while. We go through the co-teaching models, but the big one that we want you to focus on is the station model. And so that's where we feel it gets the biggest bang for the buck. And we look at having stations. That's where you can really get that intentional, specially designed instruction for your students in those stations. Any questions for Carrie or me? That was quick, way too fast. Yes, Emily, that is on those resource sheets that Carrie showed at the beginning. Absolutely. You can have copies of all of this. Yep. Get these resources out to your teachers. Carrie and Carrie's worked really hard on finishing up a module, an online module around SDI and co-teaching. I'm giving her all the credit. She did all the work. And so we're getting ready to release that soon from CKEC. So be on the lookout for that because that will help your folks even more. We're kind of summing up everything we've talked about today in that online module.
All right. Well, thank you all so much. This was very informative for me. So I really appreciated hearing all of that. And the recording will be available soon. And all of the resources are in the EdCamp grid. So we'll see you guys at our next session in about 10 minutes.
Thank you, Court.